Hello, and thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about. Oh, someone's saying, can someone share the link for the webinar? Okay, cool. Right, we're good to go now. Right. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking about the current climate and the challenges that we face during the current period, and ways to navigate around, some of these challenges that are being thrown at us. What better day to do it than the Black Friday itself, really? Throughout the session, please feel free to drop in comments, um, share your thoughts, any questions that we may be able to tackle, during the presentation, if they're super relevant to the topics that we are discussing there, or we will follow up with them if we are unable to tackle those questions straight away. Before we begin, just a quick introduction about who we are. So I'm Said, Chief Operating Officer here at Honcho. Work really closely with some of the retail brands we work with, and that really helps me keep my hands on the pulse of the market.
Hi, I'm Steve Wright. I'm a paid media account director here at Honcho. About 15 years experience now in paid media, working both with large online e-commerce retailers and agency side. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. Right. So, also to make it more fun, we're running a competition today where you'll all have a chance to win a goodie bag from Honcho. And all you have to do is fill in a form that will be shared in the comment section by one of my colleagues. And towards the end, we will randomly pick a winner and share who won the competition, really. Right. Okay. So, let's get straight into it. According to Retail Economics, who ran a survey a couple of months ago, and appreciate obviously it's a couple of months, and the realization might have hit already. But there seems to be a huge disparity between what retailers are thinking in terms of the growth they can achieve during this quarter, versus what the consumers are thinking on the ground, really. The general feel that, from what we've seen and what we've kind of been looking at from our clients, is that it's consumers are feeling it's not an ideal time to be spending or increasing their spending on shopping this quarter. They're opting to squirrel away some of those funds for the rainy days that might come ahead in the next few months. But the key takeaway here is that the growth expectations by retailers will have to be readjusted in line with this reality on ground, really. And this impact is not just limited to a particular segment. It's kind of affecting people from all walks of life. We've spoken that, least affluent segment has been hit quite hard, as you can see from this data. Really, year on year, 16.5% decline in disposable income. Again, this is August. However, similar trends are carrying on. And not just that segment, middle income families, even most affluent families, they're all kind of seeing the decline despite the increase in the growth in earnings across the board. I was reading somewhere actually that there's almost like 1.5 billion pounds have been set aside by people from all walks of life to plan against the crisis, the cost of living crisis that we've seen already. So, there will be less to spend in the market, really. And to back that up further, we were looking at the search trends, and save money as a search phrase or search term has actually hit an all-time, well, not all-time, 5 years high, and it's on the upward trajectory, which really again shows the mindset of the consumers they're in at the moment. In total, what that means is, almost 4.4 billion of non-food spending is expected to be taken out of the market. People are holding back, as I said earlier. UK seems to be the most affected. Obviously, this data is from retail economics, but looking at the global international clients that we work with, we are seeing similar patterns. German and French markets are a bit more resilient compared to what's happening in the UK. But again, there is all this evidence kind of points to the fact that there is less available in the market to tap into.
Yeah. Despite these, like the changes in consumer behavior that Saeed has just mentioned, retailers across a range of categories are still actually expecting to see volume increases during peak period. Uh, yeah, so what we're looking at here, it shows what percentages of businesses in each of these categories are expecting to see growth over this season. Now, if it's green or blue, they are expecting lower growth than last year. Yellow, the same, but the ones you really want to look at are the pink and the red ones, where it's 1 to 10% higher growth than last year, or more than 10%. If we take apparel in particular here, we can see that 34% of them think they're going to get 1 to 10% higher growth than last year, and 30% of them believe they're going to get more than 10% higher growth than last year. This does differ wildly from what the consumers themselves are saying. So here we're looking at the expected areas where consumers are going to cut back. Now, as you can see on the last slide, almost 60% of people in the apparel industry are expecting growth. Apparel, however, is the one area where we think we're going to see the biggest cutbacks this year from consumers, coming in at 26%. Although, as you can see, there are cutbacks across an awful lot of categories here. One thing I will point out that we've seen a lot is it comes down a lot to, as always, to price. We've got some clients who pride themselves on being the cheapest in the market. As a result, they are actually seeing growth this year, 20 to 30% growth over this time last year. On the flip side of that, we've got some luxury retailers, and they are finding it a lot harder this year. Search volume for their products as a whole is down, and then average order values are down as well. So where you're positioned in the market can really help with your success or how much this is going to impact you during this time. So looking at high street versus online, as everyone knows, online got a real big boost at the start of COVID. With lockdowns, a lot of people migrated away from high street shopping over to online shopping, especially during peak retail season. This year, we've actually seen that trend start to reverse. Part of this is those who were maybe not so comfortable online and had a preference for high street have migrated back there. But at the same time, the economic situation as a whole has caused the online total share of retail sales to drop. High street sales, they have improved, but only by 2.5%, or 2.8%. Throughout like September, for example, we did see footfall growing on the high street. At one point, it rose 10.6% in a week. And it's seen growth for the first 3 weeks. It was only the last week with the additional bank holidays where we've seen this decline. But overall, that 2.8% figure, that growth there, that has also been stunted by the current economic conditions.
Yeah, Steve, just on that. So I was reading somewhere that it's not only kind of post-pandemic people are just returning back to the high street because they wanted to get out. It's also the fact that people are just looking for better prices, and online may not be the only place where they find those prices these days.
Indeed. And when it comes to online sales as well, overall, after trending upwards for almost a decade, they have started trending down this year. Year-on-year growth as far as online retail sales is sitting at minus 8.1%. So we have seen a dip. To make things a bit more challenging for retailers as well, this year we have seen significant inflation in Google CPCs. So we've got a graph here for today for CPCs for today so far. This is comparing Black Friday cost per clicks on Google versus last year. As you can see, it started dropping around 11 a.m. back to 5% up on last year, but throughout the morning, over 15, up as high or just over 20% increase in CPCs. So with less sales in total, with lower value sales, and your cost per acquisition increasing because of inflated CPCs, it has become quite difficult this year to emulate the successes of previous years. That said, we have got some tips and some advice on how to help combat all of that. Oh, you're on mute side, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, so thanks for that, Steve. So that section that we just spoke about was kind of, setting the scene, getting everyone to think about what is happening on the ground at the moment. But the real takeaway is that disparity that we spoke about between what's expected from the market as opposed to what's going to happen or what is happening, what we're seeing at the moment. So really, I think I think retailers will all have to review and rethink how things have been forecasted previously, and maybe look to reforecast and reset expectations internally as well. Beyond this point, obviously, we didn't want to just create like a doom and gloom picture, really. Beyond this point, we would talk about what areas we can look at to improve or address some of the concerns that we've spoken about previously. So the first one for me has to be communication, really, and I think over the last few years, and just generally, like within working with so many brands, this is one area that needs a bit more attention, really. Communication, as we see it, happens a lot in silos. You have the way the ads are written, and versus the way copy is written on the website, versus how email marketing happens, how customer service how departments speak to your customers. All of that happens in different kind of pockets, essentially. What we really want to see is obviously more of. I'm not saying all brands are doing that or not doing that, but what we really want to see more of is a more cohesive communication strategy that understands the needs of your audiences, who your audiences are, how they're broken into different segments, and what their actual needs are, and everything is centrally managed. Yes, there are obviously different nuances to how different platforms behave and how the algorithms behave, but at the core of it, your communication strategy and communication messaging needs to be very, very consistent across the board. So the first or the two areas within communication to work on, and especially given the current climate, you have to be a bit more kind of empathetic in your messaging. Really, less affluent customers, as we've kind of spoken about, have been hit quite hard, and it's really important to understand or show an understanding of their situation, and it can really go a long way, potentially. One of the examples that comes to my mind is The Ordinary, which is the beauty brand. When they were putting up their pricing up, they opened it up on social media, really, and asked their customers and public generally, or not asked, but really opening up as to why they are having to improve or increase their pricing, giving a breakdown, and that was quite well received. So just just being open, being transparent, sometimes can go a long way and can help you through the situation, really. The second area would be how do you add value to an experience, to your customer's experience. And it can't only be a race on the price. Yes, certain brands can afford to do that, but largely, like, within retail, margins are already very tight. And if it's just a price war, it could be a race to the bottom, really. So instead of just relying on pricing, how are we kind of adding value to the customer experience is also really, really important to think about. There are some stats around how especially younger audiences now thinking about sustainability measures that different brands are taking. Being clear about the durability of your products or longevity of certain features might need highlighting, along with the pricing competitiveness. So combine these two things together should give the retailers a bit of an ammunition to counter the trends that we are currently seeing in the market.
Yeah. Um, uh, just back on the previous slide where Saeed was on about value for money as well. A great example of that recently has been the whole thing about air fryers. So there was a bit of research done that showing it was cheaper to use your air fryer than it was to use your oven. Um, it kind of doesn't take into account the fact you've got to recoup the cost of your air fryer, which will take a long time. But that message in that, hey, this product helps you save money, has suddenly caused a significant boom in the number of air fryers being purchased. So whether it's value for money or something that's going to help the customer save money, like Said mentioned about longevity. Yes, it's a bit more dear to buy this now, but it's going to last you 3 times as long as a cheaper one. They're the kind of messages that are really going to help you convert at the minute when money is really mattering. Moving on to our second area, a focus on existing customers. A lot of clients we see, or brands we see out there, really focused on getting new customers. We need more customers. It is always much cheaper to reconvert an existing customer than it is to bring in a new one all day long. So yes, whilst you will have a sort of natural attrition and drop off in your existing customers, you want to try and nurture them and hang on to them for as long as possible, because getting them to purchase again, as I say, is much cheaper. You do still need to focus on new customers. You always need to be feeding that funnel, bringing them new customers on board. But the more you can focus on retaining them, the more profitable it's going to be. So there, one thing to do is to really know which segments as well for yourselves are most profitable. Um, Quite often you will have active buyers, people who are buying a single product or low value products. Here's where you really want to be looking at things like upsells, or at least capturing first party data so that you can remarket to these people. But then you have segments like your elite customers. These are the ones who are going to buy multiple times in the last 12 months. They might be high value customers with a high sort of annual spend or a high lifetime value. These are the ones you really don't want to lose. There's clearly some sort of brand loyalty or brand affinity there. If they keep coming back, actively nurture that, actively try and maintain that, because in terms of ROI, they are one of the best segments you can possibly have. Moving on, there are other segments, things as dormant customers or infrequent buyers. And people quite often don't do enough to try and bring these back. Um, you see it occasionally on email marketing where it's hey, we haven't seen you in a while, here's a 10% off voucher. But people don't really tend to do much beyond that. There's no clever use of remarketing lists or assets specifically for these people to try and bring them dormant customers back. Again, if they had a good and a positive brand experience the first time they bought from you, it should still be cheaper to convert them than a new customer. We then move on to people like infrequent buyers, email subscribers, and going what's back to Saeed said about communication. Not everyone will act the same way as well. find out what type of messaging works best for each of these customer segments, test, learn, and then use that message in there to make sure that you are hitting all of these and bringing them all back for repeat purchases.
Okay, and yeah, and I think this is the second point is like, really, or third point. I really wanted to talk about building trust to stand out, really, especially in the current circumstances. We know that Black Friday has been around for a while. However, it has earned a bit of a reputation. It's really hard to, or especially for consumers, to find genuine offers and deals, and you can see that consumer confidence has really taken a hit around Black Friday as a whole. Actually, looking at some of the surveys and results online, I was reading a recent survey conducted by YouGov, I think, quite recently, and 52% of the consumers actually said that they think that deals are a bit fake, and that doesn't bode well, especially when we are looking to improve the consumer confidence and improve the relationship with the customers. Really, some of the retailers that we've during our research that we saw very last minute just put create a category page and collate all of the offers and deals that they've got in a under a category page, and then just go live with that as a to take part in it. And I think that sort of mindset can hurt the consumer confidence further. I think there needs to be a bit more transparency around how the prices are changing during Black Friday, and if the deals are actually genuine. Some brands are actually taking a stand against Black Friday as well. I don't know if people in the audience have actually seen that, but there are a few brands actually, again, quoting The Ordinary, the beauty brand. They've gone against this whole mentality of pushing people to make multiple purchases that they might not actually need to make, and actually offered a whole month of deals as such, with or offering free deliveries and all of that, taking the pressure out of Black Friday. Now, that's not to say that you can't start your deals earlier. In fact, that's what we've seen happening this year, where people or retailers have actually a couple of weeks before the Black Friday, all offers actually go live. But that's kind of overall, it's an opportunity for brands to be genuine, be authentic, and stand out with a purpose for their customer. And here's an example of what happened, or what we saw in a survey, according to which 98% of the discounts offered were actually available at the same price or cheaper in the past 6 months. So I was saying to my team here that last year, exactly at the same time, I was looking at similar stats, and it was actually 99% of the kind of Black Friday deals weren't actually real deals, and that's the real problem we have with the whole shopping season. That we need to win trust, and if it's not pricing, if you can't be transparent in pricing, or if the margins don't allow us to slash our prices beyond a certain point, then we have to look at how we add value to our customers, things that we were talking about previously. So it's just if you want to participate in it, do it well and do it properly. Otherwise, like I said, there is also an opportunity to kind of stand by the principles that perhaps go against pushing shoppers to kind of make multiple purchases, I suppose. The other area to kind of look at is stock availability, communication around delivery, your returns policy, and the pressure of pricing has actually pushed some of the retailers to think about the delivery costs, the returns policy. Like, there are certain retailers we've come across that are no longer offering a free returns, just because it's expensive and it's no longer viable. Again, all of this needs to be communicated in a more transparent manner. If we do that, consumers will understand. But if we don't, and there are examples of that, Steve. I think we were talking about an example that you came across during Christmas period where consumers were a bit misled on.
Yeah, it was a tailor-made goods company, and they were advertising next day delivery. What they didn't say was, yes, it's a next day delivery service for DPD, but only after our 10 days manufacturing time, because they're tailor-made goods. So they had people ordering on the 19th, 21st, right in the run-up to Christmas, thinking, great, I'll have this next day, perfect Christmas present, and it was turning up in January. They got absolutely hammered as far as reviews went. It significantly damaged the reputation of the company. And then comparing year on year in January, they were over 40% down, sheerly as a result of the reviews they received over Christmas. Even if something isn't as great as you'd like it to be transparent about it, because misleading the customer, it will always come back on you every time.
Yeah, so communication, and on your landing pages, I think that's the place where you can be absolutely clear about what those policies are, what the return policy is. Before people make the purchase, they need to be aware of these things in a most transparent manner. Okay, so the fourth area that we would encourage all retailers to look at is, obviously, we within the marketing space, we talk about data-driven decision making quite a lot. In essence, I think what we do around this period is fresh thinking, fresh planning, which helps. However, we don't tend to look at previous learnings, previous years data that has actually that might have delivered some really good results, and the learnings there could be really, really strong. So, which products have actually or worked really well last year, what type of ads or ad copy performed really well or got engagement, email content that worked really well and got engagement, and what type of content worked really well during that period. All of that can actually help you create an incremental activity or incremental results, as opposed to kind of starting again every single time. And I've got an example of that, really, looking at John Lewis and how they approach their Black Friday. More often we see, when a new category pages being created, it's really hard to then compete in the search results because it's fresh compared to some of the other more established retailers who are using the same category pages over and over again every year. And this is an example of John Lewis, similar strategy throughout the last 5 years that I came across. Before Black Friday kicks in, this landing page becomes available becomes visible in the navigation, and it's very content led, answering questions around Black Friday. Generally, you can see that there is a focus in trying to get this page ranked well before Black Friday. As soon as we get into the period of Black Friday itself, like a week within kind of Black Friday or on the day, you can see that page changes to show more actual deals, and that's kind of that's how they're trying to win the SEO side of things, which is on the right hand side you can see, like they're ranking on page one of Google for Black Friday deals, which is a massive term. You can also see some apologies, it's a small text, but some of the other retailers that are ranking there deploy a very similar strategy. It's very content led. It's utilizing the pre-existing assets. By assets, I mean landing pages. Um, and it's not a fresh start, so Google can understand, or Google already knows about the page. It just gets a new focus, perhaps get new links in, and build more authority around it to make it more relevant for the day. So
Yep. So what I'm going to talk about now is some key considerations for your campaign building, particularly around paid search. But some of these apply everywhere. So the very first one would be utilizing experiments. Yeah. Um, you're never going to get as much traffic at any other point of the year as you are during peak, if this is your peak, that is. This is the perfect time to be doing a lot of testing and an awful lot of learning that you can utilize to drive your campaigns forward. Like experiments in Google Ads, testing things from bidding strategies right down to small things like the match types of your keywords. Having more diverse campaigns, first of all, can help reduce risk. If you put all your eggs into one campaign and it doesn't pan out the way you think it's going to, it could cause significant losses. Whereas by testing multiple tactics, whether it's multiple different landing pages, as Saeed said, it's definitely worth doing that. Because you will find that some will perform better than others. You can then focus in on them areas and really start growing your revenue. One thing I would say is, and this sounds obvious, but focus on your best sellers by absolutely maximizing your visibility on these products and really, really driving these products, especially if they're at a high ROI. That can actually generate income that you can use to push your more upper funnel stuff, your brand awareness, which in turn will help drive more conversions. I know there's the old 80-20 rule. 80% of revenue comes from about 20% of your products. That normally holds true, but you need to know what them 20% are. You need to identify them. You need to identify why they're performing so well and really, really drive that forward. And this one is becoming more and more important. I was going to say every year, every month at the minute, which is attribution modeling. It's more important than ever to use data-driven attribution now. The days of last click are pretty much gone. But this just helps make sure that you've got a proper view of exactly what's going on within your campaigns. Taking a more holistic view as opposed to just looking at each channel. Like Sayed said with communication, SEO's doing SEO, PPC's doing PPC, and no one's really talking to each other. That doesn't work any longer. Taking a full multi-channel approach is always going to produce much, much superior results. So to go into that a little further, this graph here, it's typical of what you'd normally expect to see. Paid search or organic are going to be at the top, but social tends to be a bit lower down, as does display. We often find in periods of low conversion that it's these lower ROI channels like Facebook, like display, that have their budget cut first every time. But if you look at full attribution modeling, it frequently shows that these are the campaigns. It's the social media, it's the display, it's the YouTube that are driving the users who come back through your branded search, whether that be through SEO, through PPC, and your branded campaigns. They're normally your highest ROI campaigns. So yes, you might see an ROI improvement for a week, maybe even a month when you turn off them because you've not got their spend. But as you're approaching like your normal customer journey, however long that cycle is, as you'll get into that time period, you'll start noticing your brand traffic starting to decline and you're wondering where it's gone. That's because you've stopped them campaigns that are attracting them users in the first place, that are making them Google you 2 weeks later and getting you them conversions. I've actually seen this in action myself in real life. I worked for an extremely large e-commerce business here up north. and they cut Facebook for an entire division. 3 weeks later, we seen our branded sales drop by almost 20%. We employed full attribution modeling, and we actually found something really, really interesting, which was the campaigns on Facebook that were generating revenue last click. That's all they were doing, a little bit of last click revenue. There were some campaigns that didn't make a penny in last click. They were driving thousands and thousands of pounds worth of revenue through branded search. So we changed our focus on Facebook. Let's not chase sales. Let's optimize these campaigns to drive more people into our search, to drive more people into our SEO. Within 3 months, that 20% dip had actually turned around into 30% growth. So by taking all your channels into consideration and using them all to complement each other rather than them all having their own strategy, we'll do far better than looking at each one's on their own. If we jump to the next slide, this is the bit that people don't tend to look at or don't tend to see. If we look at the one in the middle here that says social organic, that's got the highest value of revenue here. On last click, that would just show as organic search. Hey, organic's doing brilliant. Social hasn't done much. No, social has drove all them people to organic in this case, and that is one of your highest value conversion paths here. And this is the bit that people tend to miss. And when they're sacrificing social, when they're sacrificing display because it doesn't do anything last click, these are the orders that you're actually sacrificing. You're sacrificing your branded search and your highest ROI campaigns. So just taking that whole multi-channel view, always going to serve you better than doing things in silos.
Yeah, just to add to that, Steve, really, I think some of the kind of retailers, and not everyone can afford like massive above the line campaigns, TV campaigns and nationwide and all of that. And in that case, you're not actually doing anything to grow your brand as such, and you're relying on the online channels, and without that, if you then switch off the top of the funnel kind of build up, it will have a severe impact later down the line. So I think playing at the bottom of the funnel for a short space of time can work. And as we know, I mean, you've spoken about increase or rise in CPC costs. I think that's where it swells up, isn't it, and grows, and then become at some point an unmanageable beast as such, because there isn't enough kind of investment early on building top of the funnel, really. So no, I completely agree.
Yeah, and on the flip side as well, I myself, one of our clients at the minute, has recently switched to a total site ROAS model. So there's not a ROAS target for AdWords. It's not a ROAS target for Facebook. It's just this is how much we want to spend versus our total revenue, and that's has allowed us to really drive the top of the funnel stuff, and we've seen that pay off. And they're one of the few people who already, throughout the difficult times this year, are coming in 30-40% up, and that model has allowed them to experience that growth, because previously they wouldn't be growing the top of their funnel. All they were doing was competing on expensive keywords at the bottom. So yeah, changing your strategy up in that way and taking that bigger view.
Yeah.
So on to our next slide. This is about testing. At the moment, we're in the age of AI optimization now. Google and Facebook, they can write your ads for you. They can create your campaigns. They can automatically do your targeting for you. Making campaigns has never been easier. Making great campaigns, though, is just as hard as it's always been. Great example of this is Google's new responsive search ads. I say new, they've been out for a while now, but one ad can do it all. You have 15 headlines in there, and it can use all different combinations of them. One of our guys worked it out a while back, and with all the different assets and the different places they can show, it's something like 30,000 different variations of the same ad from that one ad. But can anyone who uses them tell me what their top 3 headline variations are now? Probably not. In the old days, everyone would know. When you were having to write each ad yourself, you knew what messaging was working well and what messaging wasn't, and you'd frequently swap it out. You'd frequently play winner stays on with your ads. you'd be split testing, and that way you always had that incremental improvement, that incremental growth. The feeling nowadays is more, oh, well, Google's optimizing that, we'll leave that to Google. And you're not learning the way that you used to. By running frequent split tests on your campaigns, you're going to drive that incremental improvement. And yes, it may be a little improvement here and a little improvement there, but all of them added together can result in significant improvements to your overall ROI. If we move to the next slide, this is a great example when I say even the smallest things can make a big difference. Test stuff like button placement, color schemes, fonts. IMRG, which is the Internet Marketing Research Group, actually ran a survey a while back about the text on the Buy Now button, which everyone knows as the Buy Now button. As you can see on this graph, Buy Now doesn't perform anywhere nearly as well as Place Order. For over 50% of retailers, Place Order is the call to action on that button that delivered the most revenue. And this was across 240 odd retailers as well. You wouldn't think that changing 2 words on a button could make such a difference. Now imagine if you're doing this sort of testing with all your buttons, all your landing pages, all of your ads, all of your audiences. The incremental growth you can get there is absolutely huge, and it's well worth taking that time. And as I said before, you're never going to have a better time of year where you're going to get more data, more purchases to work out what works for you and what really works for your customers.
Brilliant. That's some great insight, Steve. Thanks for that. That is a wrap from our side. If you are looking for more insights or just a discussion around how to navigate around this tough period, even beyond this, because let's be honest, it's not the current trends are here to stay for a while. So if you need any advice or anything, please do get in touch and let us know. In terms of the winner of the goodie bag, we will get back to you in an email, and hopefully we'll be in touch very soon. Thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you found that very useful. Thank you.
Thank you.